Hi, I'm Bronwyn Clyde.
Hi, I'm Tom Wren.
Hi, I'm Jenny Williams.
Hi, this is Holly Evans.
Hi, this is Bruce McAvaney, and you're listening to Hooked on Sport.
Hello and welcome back to Hooked on Sport. If you're a return listener after last week's debut, thank you. It's great you're backing up. We've had loads of amazing feedback, but we're going to keep aiming to strive to give you our best stuff. But if you're here for the first time, welcome. Now, there's no real need to go back to episode 1, but, spoiler alert, I'm going to begin with a few updates to last week's story list. So here's your cue to find episode 1. It'll make the next 90 seconds a lot easier to follow. Firstly, Glenunga Football Club. Last week I told you about their wild rise from the Chuck Steak of Division 7 to the prime rib of Division 1 in the Adelaide Footy League. In just 14 years, they've ascended from the league's basement to the penthouse suite. What a journey. Now in 2024, they've finished the minor round top, and since we last spoke, they took out the second semi-final by 74 points. So the juggernaut rolls on. And while we're on juggernauts, Brighton Lacrosse Club did it again. Their women won their 7th straight State League premiership, shading a brave Woodville 6-4. For good measure, the men also tasted glory overcoming minor premier Glenelg to complete the gender double. Glenelg and Brighton featured in last week's SA Best. Let's fire up this week's top 5 hidden stories in South Australian sport.
Number 5.
At number 5 today is the Campbelltown City Soccer Club. Now, unless you're a follower of the world game, you may not be aware of the power shift in local football, where once Adelaide City and West Adelaide dominated the local landscape, now 2 clubs in the city's northeastern sprawl are the front runners. And while Clemsig-based Metro Stars enjoyed another grand final appearance, it was their neighbours Campbelltown City who lifted the trophy. Since 2013, the beginning of the current National Premier League structure, Campbelltown City, aka the Red Devils, have claimed 6 championship titles. And these boys are cold-blooded when under pressure. Those 6 championships have come despite finishing premiers, which is top at the end of the minor rounds, just twice. Now, the club first opened its doors 60 years ago. Doors to a tin shed, that is. This is from the club's own website.
Unlike the magnificent modern facilities we now enjoy, there was no reverse cycle air conditioning. Heating was achieved by lighting fires of wood gathered from the local artichoke patches and cooling by opening the shed doors. From
tin to a cabinet full of silverware. They're the reigning Federation Cup champs as well, sending them back to the Australia Cup where they've routinely frightened the A-League franchises. Campbelltown City, number 5 in SA's Best.
Number 4.
At number 4 is a club that would have earned my attention much sooner, but between my time at the Sunday Mail closing and Hooked on Sport returning, I took a long overdue vacation. While I was away, Central District Lions Basketball Club was working overtime, completing the most incredible of transformations. Not dissimilar to the very hungry Caterpillar for those of you with young kids. Now, the Lions play in the NBL 1 Central competition, which is our state league and just one level below the WNBL. But they've gone about it without much success. Since their inception in 1981, they'd never made a grand final and were usually spotted amongst the competition's cellar dwellers. Last year, they won 1 game. In 2022, they won twice. In 2021, winless. And as the competition was abandoned without a ball bounced in 2020, it meant they'd spent this entire decade in the bomb shelter of last place. Until 2024. In the off-season, the Lions brought in 4 quality players to supplement a squad that just simply wasn't able to match it with the top end of town. Jasmine Fijo, Casey Samuels, Taylor Levy, and Lily Ritz. They sure added some Ritz. But this was a whole-of-club effort. 17 minor round wins led to a first-ever grand final berth against the old stagers, Forestville. Central trailed for most of the night and was 6 points down at three-quarter time. But the final term could have been played with the Rocky theme song in the background. They banged on 30 points to win by 12. Bottom, 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 top. If you've seen the movie Hoosiers or Breaking Away, then you'll understand the power and the roar of these Lions. They're a belated arrival in SA's Best.
Number 3.
Short but sharp at number 3, Norwood coach Jade Rawlings. It's his 4th year in Adelaide. The man best known as Twig has his team into a second GF after the 2022 flag. Now, I've had a bit to do with Jade over his stint at the Legs, and I never tire of hearing him speak. Footy smart, tactically perceptive, but his finest trait, he is an incredibly caring, thoughtful, compassionate human being. He is the antithesis of the rule, nice guys finish last. And all this alongside a record and CV that screams AFL senior coach. When everyone thought he was heading back home for more cash, after just 1 season at the end of 2021, he was busily extending with the Redlegs. His family felt settled here, so he wasn't moving. Shortly after, when the SANFL needed a state coach, Jade's hand was up. You could argue Jade's become a more parochial South Australian than a jaded few of us who have lived here all our lives. When Rawlings first arrived in Adelaide, he borrowed a room at the home of then SA Premier Stephen Marshall. The Premier. It's another role Rawlings wouldn't be ill-suited to. It's hard to imagine Twig lost to politics, but maybe he will be poached by the pending Tasmanian AFL franchise. He's from the Apple Isle, and it would seem a waste if he never returned to AFL footy. But for now, Twig Rawlings can be content with the number 3 position in this week's SA's Best.
Number 2.
At number 2 in this week's SA Best Countdown, 2 retired footballers who continue to overachieve. AFL fans will be well aware the Sydney Swans and Geelong are enjoying some time off ahead of home preliminary finals next weekend. No 2 clubs have been more consistently excellent in the last 10 years than Sydney and the Cats. Now, it's too simplistic to suggest each club rides on the coattails of one South Aussie expat apiece. But Tom Harley, now Swan CEO, and Andrew Mackey, Geelong recruiting boss, are simply masters of their fields. Here in Adelaide, the prevailing message is everyone should be sacked. Sack Hinkley, sack Nix, sack Justin Reid. Premiership clubs don't sack. They entice the best. Let these jog your memory. Magpies president Eddie Maguire poached Mick Malthouse from West Coast and Collingwood became a powerhouse. Brisbane pinched David Noble from Adelaide, precipitating the Lions' finals resurgence. Melbourne threw heaven and earth at Paul Roos, which ultimately delivered the D's, an historic basket case, the 2021 flag. The list goes on. For Adelaide and Port Adelaide, it's time. Nobody will remember who you sack, it's who you appoint. Chase Harley, Chase Mackey. To be the best, you need the best, and they are the best. And that's why they're number 2 in this week's SA's Best.
Number 1.
At number 1 this week, I cannot go past South Australian hockey queen Jane Claxton, who has just announced her 13-year career with the Hockey Roos has come to a close. What a champion. Jane retires as a co-captain after 3 Olympic Games campaigns and 250 test caps. That's 7th on the all-time list and comfortably the state's number 1. Claxton, a product of the Burnside Bulldogs, has hockey bloodlines that run incredibly deep. Her father Bob has been instrumental in spreading the sport through the Asia Pacific. Countries like Vanuatu now have sticks, balls and even pitches, where once there was nothing. And brother Matthew won Hockey SA's equivalent of the McGarry Medal a decade ago. She's a remarkable athlete from an amazing family. The finale to her career begs the question, is Claxton our greatest ever South Australian hockey player? Alison Peake played 222 games for the Hockey Roos, Juliet Haslam 220. Robert Herbie Haig, who went to 3 Olympiads between 1968 and 1976, well, he's a serious contender as well. But unlike the other 3, Claxton has no Olympic medal. Her playing and captaincy credentials, though, are incredibly compelling. Choosing an all-time one, well, that's outside my capacity, but for now, Jane Claxton, she is firmly number 1 in this week's SA's Best.
What's hooked Hooky in?
There's plenty in South Australia that divides us. We're all judged on which side of town we live, where we went to school, even whether we're Port or Crows. But there's one major SA sporting event where equity and equality saturates every single participant. The City Bay Fun Run. There is no greater display of communal respect of what our town could truly be than the City Bay. From the elites like Jess Stenson and Isaac Hayne, who'll cross the finish line before the barbecues are fired up, to the weekend shufflers who simply saunter the length of Anzac Highway over a leisurely few hours, everyone is a hero. It brings all types, charity crews, company social clubs, even summer sport teams looking for that pre-season edge. And it's on again this Sunday. Have you ever run one? I have. Only the one. I broke an hour. It was only just, and it was thanks to one man. I don't know his name, but at the 9-kilometre mark he ran past me. He was dressed as a zebra. Now look, I'm no elite athlete, but I wasn't going to be beaten by a zebra. I caught him along Brighton Road, and by the time we turned right into Jetty Road, I'd pushed myself way into that red zone. My body was telling me to ease off when a member of the swelling crowd would cheer on the zebra. He was closing on me, and I strained even harder. I crossed the finish line with the zebra striding in just a few metres behind me. We nodded and high-fived. He'll never know how he inspired. If you've never run the City Bay, then I urge you to enter. If you can't run it, walk it. It's Adelaide's greatest celebration of amateur sport. Oh, and make it fancy dress if you want. You'll never know who you'll trigger into action. I'm hooked. on the City Bay Fun Run.
By hook or by crook?
It's hard to imagine a sport where, as the action gets more serious, the attention span of the fans seems to wane. But the SANFL League Men's competition has found itself in precisely this predicament. Every SANFL season, the footy starts in a blaze of tribal crowds packed into suburban venues. It's a spiritual experience to wander into Cooper Stadium on a Friday night to see Norwood take on Sturt, or a Glenelg home game as they host the Roosters or Port. But it's time to face a stark reality. The early finals at Adelaide Oval just don't work. The crowds are poor, making the atmosphere even worse, and the sight of walls of empty seats on TV, it almost makes me long for those footy park tarps. So for the first 2 weeks, the SANFL should do away with Adelaide Oval and give suburban finals a crack. Sturt Glenelg at Unley would have had the grand old girl at capacity. So too for Norwood hosting the Dogs and its legions of fans. Yes, these grounds might lack a few creature comforts, but the traditional SANFL footy fan has never sought such opulence. They're more than happy with a pie in one hand, a beer in the other, standing room only. Let's send the finals back to the local clubs, by hook or by crook. And so, finally, the benediction today. My thoughts are again with Liv Golf, who last week I said needs a long-term home in Adelaide. I said that with some effort, North Adelaide Golf Course could become an incredible world-class 18-hole venue that would become its long-term base. A destination course used once a year by the Liv Pros and the other 51 weeks for the cashed-up golf devotees around the world who will travel to our town and pay a premium to play it. Now, here's some more food for thought. A feature par 3 inside the place next door, Adelaide Oval. Picture this. A tee block in front of the scoreboard on the hill, a green in front of the southern and western grandstands, 40,000 fans taking it all in, corporate facilities, big screens, bands playing, and the voice of Adelaide Oval, Jared Walsh, leading the party. Damien Hoff is the head groundsman at Adelaide Oval, and he can work miracles with that surface. A tee and a green would be a snap for his capabilities. It'd be the greatest show golf has ever seen, and it's right there in front of us. A stadium hole in an actual stadium. That's all for this week. Thanks to everyone who has liked and subscribed or followed. Please tell a friend Hooky's back. See you next week, where I'll wrap the Olympics and Paralympics and determine my SA's best across both sporting extravaganzas. And for those doing the City Bay, run your own race. Don't get thrown by a zebra.